It is 251st day of Ukrainian struggle. Mediacentru of Ukraine is working. My name is Vasil Zamachvalov, and we're about to begin our briefing. Our guest here is Yevgen Korniychuk, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Ukraine to Israel. Mr. Yevgen, good morning to you. Good morning to you too. Mr. Yevgen, the first question will be the following. What, as it right now, is a political and social landscape of Israel regarding our war? Well, today, what is going on today is the mm, ex- the votation for Kyiv, and this is the first votes um, for the last 4 years, and I think this is not the last one because there is no clear majority that can take charge of the government. The political spectrum is quite different, as you remember. Up to the last coalition, there were 8 political parties, both right-wing, left-wing, Arabs. That was a coalition that is called Netanyahu. As a matter of fact, today, what is going on is the following. This coalition existed for 1.5 years, and as it right now, there is another attempt of coming back of Likud for power. And exit polls has already started to show. Of course, we didn't have much time in the morning, but it is still not clear. From our point of view, again, and our embassy, we are not doing any political agitation, and we are withholding ourselves from any comments regarding these or that political parties in local media. But when it comes to our Ukrainian colleagues, we explain them that more for us more acceptable person from the point of view of support of Ukraine is the current Prime Minister Lviv. Whether he will be able to form the majority is unknown. It's still 50-50. When it comes to Netanyahu, the situation is more unclear there, and I would try to be diplomatic as much as possible. It will be a problematic situation for us if Netanyahu will come to power, because he is well known as the lone friend of Putin, and he might use this relationship in the future in his favor, most likely. And this will make it hard for us to receive more and more help from Israel. And these elections that depend on electoral opinions. What are the opinions of Israeli people? How diverse or how united they are? Well, I was arguing with political analytics for the last several months because the majority of them were stating that the war in Ukraine will not influence the preferences of Israel people. It turned out to be untrue because for the last 2 weeks, all main political parties have expressed their opinion regarding the war in Ukraine, and as a matter of fact, all of them, besides our house Israel with Doberman is head, they expressed their favor to Ukraine. And Netanyahu also stated that he is concerned about the suffering of Ukrainian people, not even mention who the aggressor is, and also emphasize the reconsidering the chances of supplying weapon systems. From the point of view of politics, this context doesn't mean anything. You just think in order to think. But again, everyone is trying to use Ukraine and Ukrainian card in this votation and election process, and we are trying to do it in such a way that politics to be as favorable to Ukraine as possible. When it comes to civilian sector in Israel, please believe me, there is no problems with that. I would say 80+% of people support us. Both people, both NGOs, both businesses who help Ukraine, and one can state for you to understand that out of those thousands of tons of humanitarian aid, I'm sorry, 100,000 tons of humanitarian help, Only a little portion was delivered with the help of the government. The rest was delivered with the help of local people, local businessmen who support Ukraine from the bottom of their heart. If we have another minute, I would like to also say about a sad situation that happened in the field of UN. A day before yesterday, there was the votation and election regarding denuclearization and not allowance of nuclear weapon systems on the Middle East. When it comes to Ukraine, Ukraine had a state position regarding that, and in this resolution, Israel is mentioned on the one time, from the point of view that those countries who support this resolution are trying and urging for for those countries who have nuclear weapon systems to get rid of it. And as a matter of fact, Ukraine for the last 20 years has been voting positively on support of this resolution. We, while understanding that this situation is quite problematic, and especially before the elections, we conducted consultations with our ambassador, Serhii Kislitsa, there at EU, I'm sorry, at UN, and I hope that Israel ambassador will resort to him, will come to him, to make it in such a way to change his position at least into neutral. Israeli ambassador did not come to him, did not resort to his help, and thus and yesterday in Israel press there was a fuzz around this because the titles first like some Ukraine is betraying Israel. This is a knife into Israel's back. So that's another example of how somebody is using the situation in order to discredit our country. So, and this is a good reason and ground not to supply weapon systems for you and not to increase and be favorable to your defensive opportunities. And this is just one example. And every day we have too many of these examples. And in the life we live in the realities we live in, it's impossible. But here is too many fractions and groups in the government, especially between diplomatic corps, that I'm really wondered by those things that are quite unclear and happening there. And our facts were clear. And yesterday we said that first of all, this is a previous resolution. Second, Ukraine is one of the countries that voluntarily got rid of nuclear weapon systems. Number three, Israel never accepted that it has nuclear weapon systems. Well, if you say that you don't have it, what are you so afraid of? But all these facts and arguments on the background of well-organized campaign and especially anti-Ukrainian campaign, I think it had some effect, but not enough. Before the elections, Ukraine card is being used by any political players, both left-wing, right-wings, religious groups, and so on. By the way, when it comes to religious groups, those religious group representatives who attend Uman and the Jewish religion unions. If we are saying about political cards, we understand that this play is quite a complicated one. A nuclear card, and there is also the Iran card. How can this card be used in order to increase and make our relations with Israel better? Well, as of right now, Ukrainian president stated that there is some kind of warming up of relations between our countries, especially when it comes to safety sphere. And one of the factors is election. Another one is a new alliance of Russia with Iran. And this couldn't help but influence the position of Israel because the president clearly articulated to Israel that all the drones that our civilian infrastructure is shooting at Ukraine, tomorrow they will shoot at you. That is why last week we had quite an efficient conversation of the ministers of defense, Mr. Reznikov with Benny Gantz, the local defense minister in Israel. There was launched a program of cooperation. We already receive a sophisticated system of previous warning that is working in Israel, and this system will allow, I mean, sirens, and this system will allow not only to give the sirens about the alert of air raids, but also show the timing that people will have and how much time they have in order to move themselves to the shelter. And it will have to do with radars and all those systems that detect rockets and drones. So this is the first step. Many things are done unpublicly, and Israel people uh, more and more are trying to work in that sphere that is not public. And I cannot do any comments on this, but I hope that this cooperation will increase and will be more efficient for us. Well, another question regarding the general help. What is the structure of this help? What is there in humanitarian aid? What is there when it comes to help with technologies? How do Israel help Ukraine right now? Well, again, for example, yesterday the Minister of Outside Affairs, Mr. Koleba, and those ministers who help with power stations, he recalled Israel. So this is both financial help. This is also help that has to do with humanitarian things, with medicine. Today we are planning to attend our military servicemen who recently arrived uh, for protesting on Israeli land. We have 6 of them, but as it right now there is 20, at least is 20, and I'm pleased to hear that these, and I'm not pleased to hear that when these people say that their wounds are so hard that in Europe many specialists basically refused to help them. Since Israel is doing these very things for a long time, and Israel has a long experience, they do it, and that is why Israel is helping. And the last question, what is Ukrainian society in Israel, especially those who are hiding from the war? How did these visa restrictions influence them? Well, there was a big problem at the beginning of the war, and we managed to cope with it with a quite unconventional way through the advocacy and through lawyers and attorneys. Let's begin with this. The Minister of Internal Affairs launched the electronic visas for Ukrainians, and this is quite a robust case because Russians and Belarus people were coming into the country without any visas. So basically, she implemented visas for Ukrainians. Obviously, it had nothing to do with those who had rights for Israel passport, but those people who are ready to provide shelter for them, the income for them, the coming to the country is closed. So the embassy resorted to this, and within 3 months we received a positive result, and this practice was cancelled. And this is unprecedented case from the side of Israel, and our tourists were given the right to work in the sector of service, public service. So these cases have never been taken place in Israel before. I think this is quite a positive result. And those Ukrainian citizens who came to Israel and stayed here hiding from the war, every 3 months the Minister of Internal Affairs is prolonging their visas in the status of tourists. At the same time, they have the rights to work. All in all, this is not Europe, obviously, because in Europe people receive the IP, IDP status, but in Israel it's not like that. But I emphasize that taking into account the local legislation base, we did everything possible to make the life of our people here safer. Approximately we have 15,000 Ukrainians here on the premises of Israel, and we argued with the Minister of Internal Affairs uh, I said that you are quite expensive country with a bad service. She was laughing but not agreeing with me. But as a matter of fact, it happened this way because approximately 40,000 of Ukrainians came into the country, into Israel. Then half of them went to Europe because there are more better conditions for our IDPs. But some portion of people still remains here, and we are in constant contact with these communities. In many cities, there is the IDP aid centers created. For example, in Haifa, so we try to find private sponsors for them. Sometimes municipalities take cover of their expenses. But all in all, the work has been continuing day to day. Thank you so much for this information regarding the situation in Israel. We had Yevgen Korniychuk, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Ukraine to Israel. Our next briefing will start at 12 o'clock, and the people of art will join us, and we will talk with the representatives of Lesia Ukrainka theater who will go there to front.